very, very happy to welcome in Rowan Barrett, General Manager, Canada Basketball. Weird thing to say when you put a bunch of names on a sheet of paper, but congratulations, Rowan. What a big day it was yesterday. I sound sarcastic, but I mean it honestly. Massive, massive day for basketball in our country. Congrats.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thanks for having me on, guys. Lots of work, as you can imagine, in the background, to make this happen. But I always breathe a little bit easier when I see everybody healthy and running up and down the court. So I'll be holding a vigil here for the next couple of weeks until everybody gets to camp.
You're talking to two guys who believe in luck way too much. We will be doing anything we can, vigil, lighting a candle, saying a prayer, anything we can.
Rowan, I'll wear the same socks from now until then.
Just to keep everybody healthy. Obviously the big name that we saw commit yesterday, it shouldn't come as too much as a surprise because it's not like he hasn't shown up before, but Jamal Murray, I mean, fresh off the year he had, fresh off the injury recovery that he had, what does it mean to the program to get somebody like that to commit? And again, I don't want to make it just about him. There's a ton of talent on this team, but I do feel like for a lot of people that was the headliner.
No, I think it's huge. I think a guy like Jamal in your roster brings confidence, even greater confidence to your team, just because of his experience, obviously the winning, but the ability and the guts of the game, to make plays that you need, knowing that you have a guy that it doesn't seem like there's a stage that's too bright, for him to raise his level. And to your point, we saw him back in 2015 in the Pan Am Games at 18 years old playing against men. He had 22 points in the fourth quarter in overtime to beat the USA. I mean, it almost seems like he's hoping that the game is close so that he can just detonate on the game in the fourth quarter, And so I think when you get a guy like that in the fold, it definitely brings more and more confidence to your team.
So, Rowan, how much of this, getting all these incredible names together was momentum? Like, how much was it that you were asking Jamal Murray and then you're asking Shea and you're asking all these guys and like, oh, that guy's going. Like, how much of this was sort of like a snowball rolling down a hill in terms of getting different guys to commit?
No, I think the first thing is, we decided to change courses on how we operated,
okay.
Right? And one was to demand commitment over a certain amount of time, as opposed to an indefinite amount of time for 10 to 15 years. It's like, look, we've got 3 years here, guys. We've got the World Cup and we've got the Olympics,
Yep.
Let's commit for this amount of time. And I think that was one, big thing. I think players knowing also that our pool of athletes is growing and, them wanting to be a part of it, And I think lastly, nothing happens unless the players want it, right? Like this is their program. Look, I might be the GM here, but it's their program. It moves forward when players decide, I want my country to win. I want my country to be there in the thick of it. That's when you start to see, right, Shea and Jamal and RJ and guys that just jumped up right from the beginning, and said, I'm in, and Dylan Brooks and everybody else. And obviously you have your stalwarts like Kelly Olynyk, who's there every single time he can be, Dwight Powell and everybody else against Jordan. So it's I don't know how much of it was a sea kind of slowly coming along as much as, there's responsibility, I think, in these men wanting to see our country move forward. And this is our time.
Yeah, and you're talking about the buy-in from the players, and of course that's where it all has to come from. But what does it say about, maybe it says something about the buy-in from the players, maybe it says something about the strength of the program right now that, I mean, we had a coaching change within the last handful of weeks here, maybe a month ago if I'm getting my dates correct. What does it say about the program that, the new coach in Jordi Fernandez was able to get everybody to buy in, be on the page? I know some of I won't speak for you. I imagine some of the decisions on him being the guy with some of the relationships he had with the players. What does it say about the spot the program's in that there was a coaching change and you still see this much commitment?
Yeah, I think it's culture, right? And I think it's exactly kind of like I laid it out is the players are taking responsibility and saying, I want my country to win. I'm not going to allow, somebody to come and trample on our flag. And I think that when this is the mindset, when you're in your NBA team and you're in the locker room, like you don't want to hear the Spaniards, and the Slovenians and the French, and everybody talking about what they did in the summer and what they're going to do to you,
Totally.
You want to be able to say, look, hey, we're going to be here in force, you have to go through me to do that. And I think that you're seeing that more with our guys. And so even through a coaching change, our guys have a vision for what they want for themselves, what they want for their country. And, as I said, this is our time.
Just from a basketball perspective, and again, I don't want to make this about one or two players, but I think everybody, when they look at the strength of this team, is going to say that's not a good NBA backcourt in Shea and Jamal. That is an all NBA backcourt in those two. Just from a team building perspective, and again, I'm not talking about the guys you've asked or the guys that have commitment or have committed, but what does it do to the rest of the roster when you're able to start with a building block like the backcourt that you have there?
Yeah, look, I think our backcourt, should be able to be competitive with anybody in the world, for sure. But I also think we have a number of other positions that I'm sure many countries would love to have, in their teams as well. But I think that no matter what, this is not an all-star team. You know what I mean? Like we've got to build the best team, and we've got to get everybody buying in and coalescing together, right? And that means some people might not have the same role that they have all the time, in their own environment. It might not be a situation where you're coming in to take 25 shots in a game, We might have to share it around a little bit. And FIBA is a game that, once they see one guy just trying to key and trying to take over all the time, they stifle you. Like you are forced to play together. And so for me, I think that's our biggest question, right, is making sure that we're all on the same page, that we're accepting our roles, and that we're putting the best team on the floor, not the best team of NBA players, but the best Canadian team that we can put on the floor. And that might also include some guys from the winter windows, that play for us, guys that are playing overseas. Look, somebody's got to set the screen. I mean, if Jamal's going to shoot it, somebody's got to set the screen, right? And if he misses, we got to get the rebound, right? Somebody's got to muck it up and stick their nose in there and get dirty if somebody's trying to come off to shoot a bunch of threes.
Seems like you got a couple of those guys.
Yeah, somebody's got to get up underneath them and let them know it's not going to happen today. And so you have to have a mixture within your team to make the best team, and that doesn't always necessarily mean it's all the best players. You got to make the best team to give ourselves the best chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of things you mentioned there. I mean, I keep going back to Jamal and Shea. I think a lot of people do, but the two other names that jumped out to me just from a tournament basketball perspective, and I know I mean this as a compliment, I could not imagine anything more annoying than playing both Dylan Brooks and Lou Dort in a tournament.
Yeah.
Like one of them would be annoying enough. The idea that, and again, I'm not coaching for you or Fernandez, the idea of you throw them out there together, super annoying. You can have one of them out there pretty much the whole game. It does give you guys a lot of options in that regard. And I love what you're saying there about the idea of not just building an all-star team. And, again, the two names that jumped out at the bottom of the list I saw were the Scrub brothers, right? You want to talk about guys who have been with the program forever when it was far, far different names than this on there. It's just, it's great to see, Rowan.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you're going to win in FIBA, there's some sandpaper needed. I can remember playing with Steve, Nash back in the day when we were going to the Olympics. And look, at some point in a game, when a team realizes, okay, they can't stop what you're doing, the game gets physical, right? It gets physical, and somebody's trying to, they're trying to take you out of the air, or they're trying to hurt you. And look, you need somebody in your team that's going to say, look, hey, bring him to my side. Rowan, bring him over to my side, right? So that I can touch him up a little bit, right? So that we can even out the physicality in the game. All of those kinds of things are going to be, relevant. As we go to play, there's going to be tactics, there's going to be, passion, there's going to be all these things, but there's going to also be some rough stuff, and you're going to need some sandpaper if you're going to. And if not, they'll just run right through you, right? Mm-hmm. They'll run right over you. The word will get out quickly. You can out physical this team. We are not going to build a team, that you can run through. And so, we're ready. Obviously, the coach. A large part of the job is done in bringing all the players into the storehouse here, and we're together with our coaching staff and with Jordy and with David Blatt and the group and the crew. We're going to work to pick the best team that we believe can weather the storms of these tournaments and be ready to come back and hit you, game after game after game.
So, Rowan, I just want to ask you before we let you go here about one of the names that people obviously were looking for when it came out, and Andrew Wiggins. I just would like to know what the conversations were with him, the absence here for the World Cup. What were the conversations like with Andrew Wiggins before this tournament?
Yeah, I think that we with Andrew, clearly anybody watching with two eyes could see this was a tumultuous year for him. Right, he missed a significant amount of time away from his NBA team, and had some real challenges there to deal with, and then kind of topped it off in the end with an injury, with his ribs, and it's always challenging to work with an athlete and their NBA team, especially when they're finishing the season with an injury. They usually like to see them coming back healthy, before they're going on the floor to play, with their country and that. So, that was always going to be a challenge. But again, I think for us right now, our focus was to work with the players that have committed for this quad, right? That have been there, that understand the changes that we've made, understood where we wanted to go systematically. And those players are in the fold. And our focus will remain, on those players that are in the fold.
So I don't want to belabor the point because, again, I was very cognizant of the fact when talking about this that I knew Wiggins was going to be a big topic, but I think the big news is the guys who are here, and we don't need to focus on that. But I think a lot of people would hear that answer, and then the natural follow-up would be, is the door closed for 24 and the Olympics? Another name and note, Benedict Mathurin, obviously pretty big NBA season for him. I'm not asking you to definitively state one way or another, but is the door still open for those guys for 2024, despite should this summer go the way you want, despite them not being part of the World Cup tournament?
I think continuity and cohesion is our focus, right? And I think, it's really difficult if a team goes ahead and qualifies for the Olympics to come in the next year and say, okay, hey, you're out. Now we're going to put somebody else in. I think that's a very difficult thing to do. That being said, things happen, right? People get injured. Different things happen where there could be openings, right? If there's impact to the roster in some way. But I think, as I shared, for us, our focus right now is these guys that have committed. And look, I mean, with or without, these players that you're speaking to, our focus is to win. And I think a number of years ago, we embarked on this understanding this could be a challenge. We wanted to move away from being a country that, if one or two players don't play in a summer, we just don't have a chance to compete. We wanted to move past that. And so we put a lot of time into developing these young players and building our team and building our system to a place that we can miss one player, we can miss two players, and still put together a team that can compete in the world. We can't just not choose to compete because we miss a player, and so thankfully we've done that. We've built a group of players that we can choose from. And look, I mean, when you have 20 plus NBA players, the other thing is if everybody did come and everybody was here and everybody was committed, we'd have to cut some players, right? Like we might have to cut double-digit NBA players, right?
Crazy.
And so then your question would be, well, why did we cut that guy? Why were we thinking about that? So there'll always be some sort of question. I think our focus is to work with the guys we have committed and make this the best team that we can to go forward and achieve the goal.